What's up, guys? It's Sam. So, you guys had asked for some videos on Russian Fishing 4. For those of you who've obviously seen my stream, you know that I've been streaming it quite a bit, and I probably have, between the Russian version and a different account, probably 30 to 50 hours, somewhere around there in the game. This probably 30 hours this week, so probably closer to 50 in the game, and it can be a little bit overwhelming as a new player when you come in because it's a much more of a simulation than Fishing Planet is. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through and kind of give you like a quick tutorial and rundown of the first lake you're going to spend most of your time at until you get probably to level 7 or 8. And then at that point, probably a couple days later, I'll make a video on that area. But this is going to be one that'll be catered around controls, the buildings and what they do, the first tackle you want to get when you start off, some of the mistakes I made initially, and hopefully you won't make those if you're watching this, and just some of the better areas to level and get XP. I will tell you that to level from 10 to 12 has been a brutal grind, and I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if that's just the way it's designed, but it reminds me of how Fishing Planet used to be initially. That's not to scare you away from the game. I guess to start and kind of talk about how it compares to Fishing Planet, because most of you are here, you know my Fishing Planet videos. So the easiest way to explain it is Fishing Planet is much more of an arcade game, and this is much more of a simulator and much more in depth. It plays almost like an MMO would, with a skill system, crafting system. It's significantly more in depth than Fishing Planet is. Where Fishing Planet has spinning, bait casting, and float fishing, typically with, I mean, it does have telescoping rods and match rods. If I was to show you float fishing using hair rigs, spinning reels, bolo rods, glow-in-the-dark floats, bait fish rigs, it goes a lot more in depth than what Fishing Planet is. So to give you some context, if you're looking for something to try, as you know, Fishing Planet just came out with boats, so some people are looking for a little bit something different. There's not a lot going on in Fishing Planet outside of the boats. Give this a try. So it's a free-to-play game, just like Fishing Planet, and they do have premium, and they have the ability to buy currency, which I'll go into in a little bit. But I would say that it's not pay to win. It's even less pay to win than what Fishing Planet probably is. It's more pay to be comfortable, or pay to get some of the gear you want and to fish with, rather than pay to advance even. Or I mean, it's really hard to explain, but essentially it's less pay to win than Fishing Planet is, because of the keep net. So a lot of people buy the DLCs in Fishing Planet just to get the keep net. There is no keep net restriction here. The travel costs are reasonable, so they don't have that going for them. It is a bit of a grind to level, but that's probably mostly due to the game being so new and people not knowing where to go and what to fish for and how to target those species specifically. So hopefully that makes sense. So moving on, we're going to go through the buildings quickly. So this is Mosquito Lake, where you first start. So you've got the cafe here, which currently doesn't have use. You have the workshop, where you buy your tools and repair your stuff. This is the tackle shop, where you buy all your tackle, your gear, almost everything outside of bait making materials, which I'll show you in a second. You have the field kitchen here, which is free food for a day. So every day, once the clock in the upper right, you see it there, it's at 1:47 a.m. Once it hits essentially 2400, you can use that again, and you saw how much health that it gave me. It gives you probably between about 85 and 90% of your full health bar completely for free. Now that's only available at Mosquito Lake. Then we move on. You've got the leaderboard here, and this is for Mosquito. Then you have all of the areas and what everybody has caught the biggest fish on, which gives you a place to start when you're trying to target specific species. Moving on, if we look at, this is essentially highest people in the game right now. Most of these people had played on the Russian version and had their account converted, but yeah, just FYI, that's This is pretty much everybody as far as the like top 100 people in the game by level. Moving over here, you have the ATM. So if you go in and you buy currency, the smallest amount of currency you can buy for 10 American dollars, you can buy 5 gold. You can see I have 3 gold left. I initially bought 5 gold, and that's because I made a mistake, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But 5 gold essentially converts to 500 silver, and that's where you do that here at the ATM. The administration office is the place you go to buy a map. You don't necessarily have to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of a waste of money for a newer player. You'll be able to kind of watch these videos and I'll tell you where to go. You have the grocery store. So a couple of things to call out with a grocery store. Some of the most efficient food that players tend to stick with are the sausages here, as I call them. And like dollar per dollar, that's a good one to buy. And obviously the bread. If you are buying the bread, keep in mind you get 4 uses of the bread. On your third, after you've used it, and it's down to 1 of 4, go ahead and convert it to breadcrumbs, which you can do by going to crafting, clicking on the crumb, and then if it is 1 of 4, you'll get the same amount that you do if it's 4 of 4. So it's a waste to use an entire loaf of bread when just 1 of 4 will suffice. So the other thing to kind of call out in the grocery store is alcohol. So by buying alcohol, that's a way that you can get some bonus XP. So buy the alcohol, drink it. Once you drink it, you're gonna get bonus XP. So a couple of ways that you can use that. You hook a really big fish and you've been fighting it a while, pop open a beer during the fight, and then you'll know you'll get that bonus XP when it comes in. Another way is at certain points, you'll catch a fish. You'll see in the bottom left where the horseshoe is that's worth luck. You can grab that alcohol and drink it, knowing that the next couple fish you're going to get are more likely to be bigger or more valuable than the other fish that you were catching previously. So we'll go more into that depth later when we get to the UI. The boat station, this is where you go to rent boats. Initially, I'm going to tell you to avoid this for now. This is a lot of fun when you do trolling, which is an option, but as a new player, you aren't going to have the right equipment to do it, so don't be concerned with this yet. And then you have the fish market where you go to sell your fish. Pretty self-explanatory. Alright, so that's kind of an overview of the town and a couple of the things that are in it. And we'll go to the UI now. So looking at the UI from top to bottom, you have obviously in the bottom corner, you see where it says 11. That's my level. Underneath that tells you how much of the XP that I have earned and how much I need to get to the next level. So we have about 9K out of 18K. Looking top to bottom on the bars, you have your energy bar. Your energy bar is important for digging up bait, which is something you can do to harvest bait, which I'll explain in a second when we go to the workshop. We'll talk a little bit about that, but you'll see as I go through here and dig, I use up quite a bit of energy. So in order to get energy back, you can drink drinks, you can eat food, or you can just rest. All those are easy ways to do it. Again, we won't go into great detail with that. You can see there, though, there is a skill system assigned to harvesting baits. So, again, we'll go more into depth on that on another video. Looking, the next one below it, you have food. So you have energy at the top. You have your food meter. Keep in mind when that food meter is full, you will not be able to eat anymore. So you can't continue to stuff bread into your mouth at that point. With your energy level, you'll see that that will go down as you go into some bigger fights and some longer fights. You may need to actually consume food during fights to get some of that energy back. So keep an eye on that meter. The two really complement each other. The third bar is luck, which for most of the part is going to be probably a deep red, unless you tend to catch fish or multiple fish maybe in a row, that certain fish you'll catch will actually give you luck. And that's the point where I was talking about where you'd want to drink a couple beers and use that tipsy bonus to get you the XP bonus. And then at the bottom you have comfort. Now comfort isn't coming into play really a lot right now. When it rains, you'll notice your comfort going down. Eventually they're going to have a rain jacket that offsets that. At night the comfort goes down. When the sun's up, the comfort typically goes up. I don't know exactly how that's going to correlate moving forward because it's not really a lot in the game currently. It isn't really talked about much by most of the players. So you probably wondering why the hell I have a shovel out and what is harvesting bait. So as you go into the workshop, there are a bunch of tools that you can get, which are like how you'd have crafting in some MMOs like World of Warcraft. So you have the shovel here that you can buy to dig up worms. You have your fillet knife that you can use to cut up bait fish. Now a lot of these are level restricted, so you want to be careful as you click on them. Like for example, if you wanted to scoop bloodworms, you'll notice this is yellow or orange, and you have to, that means there's a level restriction that you haven't met or a skill restriction that you haven't met. So in order to use some of these, you have to be careful, because you can easily blow money on something that you can't use. That was one of the initial mistakes that I made. So we'll kind of go into that now. So you're going to start off with some money, and you're going to want to go right to the shop and go, what can I buy that's going to be awesome? Don't buy anything is my recommendation. Start with your float rods that you get. These type of telescoping rods are the ones you really want to focus on for the first probably 5 levels. If you want to get some bait, go ahead and get some bait, but remember you can make some bread too and use that as bait, which will save you some money. You really want to try and be very efficient with your money. So don't buy anything really. Play a few levels, get used to the float fishing and how it works, and I'll show you a couple intro spots that'll give you some ideas on where to start. But you really don't want to spend any money on any of these things yet, on any of the bigger rods. Now once you get to, let's say, level 5, level 6, maybe even level 7 would be great. If you wait till level 7, you can go to a new area that's called the Winding River, Winding Rivulet. And when you go here, a lot of the costs of the tackle is severely reduced from what it is here. So even though you have to pay, if you notice, you have to pay a few bucks to go to this Winding Rivulet, the savings by buying your gear there would really offset it. So that's something that if you can be patient till level 7, I would recommend. Let's say you don't want to do that. The first thing that I would recommend that you buy would be a feeder rod and a reel. So what that looks like is if you click on rods here, you'll go down to a feeder rod, and feeder rod basically means bottom fishing. The advantage to bottom fishing is that the hooks basically set themselves. Now the disadvantage to bottom fishing is that you get the least amount of XP by catching a fish on a feeder rod. You get the most amount of XP by catching a fish on a float rod. So to give you some context, by using those float rods, you should level pretty quickly to get to level 7, hopefully. And that's where you get the most XP for a fish. So it's not really a penalty associated to feeders. You just get more by catching it on a float rod than you do on a feeder rod. The spinning rod is actually right in between. So spinning rod using lures would be right in between. But we're going to skip that for now. That's a conversation for another day. So if you're going to do your first investment, you're looking at $38 for the rod. And you can just buy the entry-level reel, which is going to run you $9.50 here. Again, if you go to the other lake, it's less. So you need those two things first. You're looking about $47. Then you've got line. You probably want 10-pound mono right here. So that's another $4. You won't use any lures. You won't use any floats. The hooks, you probably want some decent hooks. At least start off, the better the hook you have, the easier it is to keep fish hooked, and you're less likely to lose them. So I would say start here. This is a good start for only $3. Probably a number 10, a number 12, somewhere in there. 12's probably fine for most of the fish you're going to catch on Mosquito. So you're looking at another $3 there. Sinkers, either one of these two sinkers is fine. Don't go up any bigger because it can damage your rod. But either one of these two would be fine. And you'll need some bait. That's pretty obvious. For most of the bait on this lake, I'd say maggot's pretty popular. The bread is pretty popular. Worms that you're going to dig up with a shovel, if you decide to do that, is pretty popular. But for now, you can use a wide variety of stuff and still catch fish. So I'd say bread, maggots, worms are fine. You know, anything that's low cost, I would ignore red worms. That's usually for little, smaller stuff. But so that you'll need some bait, so that'll be a couple bucks. I would recommend a leader. You can just buy the 1512. That's only $1, and that's pretty much all you need. So by buying all those things, you're pretty much set up and ready to go for your first intro into feeder rods around level 5 to 6. So for now, I'm going to kind of wrap it up since it's an intro video, but I'm going to show you guys a couple quick spots, and then over the next few days I'll be making some more videos that go into depth on what you should do with your first few purchases, what tools you'll need, and things like that. So to start off, I'm going to go through quickly some spots you can catch and what to catch the fish on. So this to the left is a pretty good spot over here by the reeds, right behind the boat. You can catch perch, some carp, roaches, a lot of different things in through here. This is probably the spot I'd tell you to start with a float rod. And then the second spot is if you go over here, the coordinates will be 5645. You can get a little bit bigger carp here. And I would say it's a pretty decent spot to just kind of get your bearings. This is one right here. This is my favorite rock to dig night crawlers under. Not that it matters, but I tend to find a lot of worms there. And this is the spot I was talking about. Right behind the lilies, literally just cast right behind the lilies. I'll give you guys an idea. You'll see my line get there. Really right there where you see my line, right there. Those are all great spots. Right in through here where the line is. Around through here is a little too tight, but on a float rod you probably want to have the depth between 40 to 60 centimeters, somewhere like that, just to get your rod out there and be ready to go. So hopefully that gives you guys a breakdown on what you were looking for an intro. I will be coming back there's a lot more to talk about in the game, but while you're waiting on the next video, get to level 5, get to level 6, 7, somewhere around and through there. Start there. Once you get there, you'll have a better idea of what you want to do and how you want to fish, but try not to spend any money, because a lot of people end up having to make a new account because they did something wrong, or they break off a lot of their tackle because they're trying to catch fish that are too big. Just fish those two spots that I gave you, alternate between the two of them to try to get your levels up, and you should be good to go. One last thing that I want to touch on is just real quick, pay attention to the controls. So by hitting F1, there's a few things in here that can give you, that you may not know about if you don't pay a lot of attention. Specifically, reeling really fast with left mouse button and shift can be helpful once you get to a reel system. Retrieval speed, once you get to a reel, again, holding down R and using the mouse wheel, you can adjust your retrieval speed like you see there. Without holding down R, all you're doing is adjusting your drag, essentially. A couple other things, the hot food, or the hot buttons for food and bait, B and then T respectively, allow you to really, it makes it just a quality of life thing. It makes it easier to switch bait and eat food when you need to, especially if you were in the middle of a long fight. And that's pretty much it that I want to give you guys to worry about for now. Hook sets, obviously right mouse button, you'll use that a lot. If you wanted to cast much farther, you hold shift when you cast and you'll cast out even farther. So anyway, that is a quick run through. I try to keep it under 20 minutes of the game in and of itself without you having to worry about watching me fish a ton or do any of that stuff. So I'm going to let this go for now. On the next video, I'll come back and talk about the different fishing styles and where you want to focus on for your first few rods and some of the equipment you'll need as you begin to progress past level 5, 6, and 7, and you get between 8 and 12, kind of where this account is now that I have. So thanks guys for your patience. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.